All right, for those of you just tuning in, we just finished up our matchup between the Custodes with the new Grotmus detachment and the Necrons with spammed Necron units.
Not really a detachment to speak of there.
Hypercrypt.
Sure, Hypercrypt.
Final score, Custodes 90 to a Necron 75. So I only got 25 on secondaries.
You had promised me that you would get 38 to 40 on secondaries.
I did, and I felt like I would have. I think I sat on that assassinate too long, trying to pick up. And then I just got walled. You know,
yeah. You might be able to assassinate if it wasn't toughness 6 characters, because all your assassinating guns are strength 5.
I might have been able to assassinate if you didn't make 5 out of your 6 feel no pains. That was also a big hit there. That was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not allowed. But that's one thing with Custodes. The dice can be swingy in both ways. Just because of you have your 2-up, 4-ups on pretty much everything that's not vehicles. And then the vehicles do have that 5-up invuln.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just if in those situations, when you get down to not having a lot of resources and something gets stopped, it just completely sets everything else back. I needed that one locust heavy. I needed a locust heavy to hit hard and really hurt that dreadnought to then be able to kind of take it out. Otherwise, the Blade Wizard was hiding behind a wall. I could not get to him. And then when I was able to get shots onto him, rolled a 1, and that's what happens.
That won't do it. Those are bad in Warhammer.
Yeah. And so that was, I wasn't able to take him down. I tried to get some hits into him, being that he was the lower toughness and less wounds than the Dreadnought. But still, just not able to do it. And I sat on that a little. I think I sat on that a little too long. I probably should have shuffled that one out and just taken the command point and tried to go into other secondaries, because like I shuffled out behind enemy lines. That one stacked with engage on all fronts could have been some late game point scoring over there. So I think that was probably not the best call per se to go into that. I kind of stifled myself on secondaries. But I think one of the biggest factors with this, as far as the scoreboard's concerned, is the primary game, where you having that second objective, I thought was going to favor me, because I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to be able to just throw a little unit on something and score this easily. But I think that actually backfired and favored you a lot more, because you were able to consistently keep that 15 with less dedication to those objective markers.
Yeah, the MSU style of Necrons, you have a lot of low-cost units, but you're not really taking advantage of the reanimate ability with them. With a 5-man dies, it dies. There's no reanimation.
Yep.
You're not bringing back. You're losing out that long-term durability throughout the game when we're playing MSU. Certainly gave you some flexibility on the table, but not the damage output you needed into an army that's all T6 or higher.
Yeah, and that was definitely noticed. Like, I really missed not having the shooting, and also losing Xeris that early was kind of rough. I should have probably zoned him out a little bit better. I didn't really think that you were going to push into him. I figured with me having the Scorpex over there,
I'm going to try to kill the things I hate, DJ.
But I figured with having the Scorpex over there, I thought those would be the bigger threat. In that sense, I mean, this did give me the opportunity to throw some units on the table and see some different units and they function. And honestly, I've been very happy with the Scorpex lately. Like, just even the 3-mans, I've been very, very happy with them. Disappointed with the Lich Guard. Really disappointed. The last turn, you guys did not hear how agitated I got. I hit with significantly a lot of attacks, enough to do 1 wound. And then not a single 5 or 6 in it. Like, I mean, it was like probably 10 hits and then 0 5s or 6. And then the second round hit probably again 10 attacks, 1 6. That barely finished him off. And that was just like, are you kidding me right now? But I've been kind of disappointed with the Lich Guard. I think just in general, as the power creep has gone up in the game, they have just diminished more and more. They're what they look like for their durability doesn't really do well into what we're seeing coming up in the game.
Mm-hmm. The Scorpex are pretty good just in terms of their damage output. They were able to punch up a little bit, especially because they're strength 7. But yeah, nothing else was able to really do that much damage into me. And I don't think, playing the game, I don't think I really used the detachment that much. Because I only had 3 Dreadnoughts and then the 2 Caladius as my vehicles. And I guess it came into play a little bit, but I think if I tried this again, I'd probably just switch out the shield host, drop all the dreadnoughts, and just take Venatari, because I feel like the jet bikes were doing more of the work. Their mobility was there. The dreadnoughts are good. They just kind of whiffed sometimes because they didn't have the volume I needed on them. You know, there were a couple times when the Achilles went into 3, Ophidians and couldn't pick up all 3 of them. It seems if I had 3 Venatari going into them, they'd probably pick them up. So it definitely felt like I didn't take full advantage of the detachment, the Solar Spearhead detachment. Some of the stuff was nice. The Feel No Pain was nice on the Dreadnought, but I think if I were to try this again, we'd keep the Caladius, keep the jet bikes. The jet bikes are pretty good, and then just do some Venatari.
Yeah. I liked what the Necron Warriors being able to move. They did decent for what I was trying to do with them. Again, they're very cheap. Like everything in this army is cheap, so it's like when you look at it compared to other things, like I think the biggest damage dealers, obviously the MVPs, were the Scorpex.
Mm-hmm.
They did the most work. They were able to hit the bikes very, very hard, and that's something I'm going to keep in mind for other future lists. Is like just how hard they can hit, and they for 90 points for 3 of them. So they did really well. Everything else, I mean, when we are talking MSU, everything else just kind of floundered into the toughness 6. The Locust Heavies did decent because they were able to take down that one Dreadnought real quick. So, but and then they've always kind of done decently. But other than that, like everything else just kind of floundered. The Triarch Praetorians did well for being able to get in there against the infantry aspect of it. But outside of into the infantry and into the bikes, they did damage. Outside of that, I mean, vehicles, I'm just running into them.
Yeah, and they give you that good on the board mobility. Even though you're uppy downy, you need to be able to be on the board and push into things.
Yeah, I didn't really.
The 10-inch movement's pretty good on them.
The Hypercrypt factor was decent. I mean, it definitely was able to get me to move around the board and get stuff out there. But with not having not being able to really do the damage into things, it's like, haha, I'm here and I shoot. And I mean, I failed to take down the Sisters of Silence with the Necron Warriors, which, I mean, granted, going into a 3-up save, there's 4 of them, but I took only 1 down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's slightly below odds. But when I say slightly below odds, I'm like, what, am I picking up 1 more? Maybe, it's not really. It wasn't really there. Like the damage output was coming from the destroyers, realistically, and then everything else just kind of slowed things down, but got scattered real quick. Mm-hmm. Necron Warriors got scattered real fast. The Lich Guard were survivable when things were weakened, but they just kind of they just didn't really do the damage, and Death Marks could not really land home on anything because, again, toughness 6 and their strength 5.
Yeah, and they're what, 65 points?
Yeah. And that we go back into that aspect of. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the most expensive unit in the army was the Triarch Praetorians at 100 points, other than Xeris at 175. But I mean, the most expensive unit in my army was the Praetorians at 100 points. Mm-hmm. So everything was super cheap to try to keep that aspect zone, and then just jump things with a lot of things. I wasn't really able to jump too much of it. Like I charged the Lich Guard and the Warriors into the center, but that didn't do very much. I just kind of it took away primary points from you, which was cool. I was able to do that. I was able to do some kind of fancy stuff with it, but at the end of the day, I couldn't remove enough things. Like I could not get that objective that was closer to my deployment zone. I couldn't get that till too late. Mm-hmm. I did misunderstand. I didn't know that the tank undamaged was such a high OC. I thought it was when it got damaged, it gained the OC boost. That was a misunderstanding that I probably would have tried to at least hit it to get the 1 wound. But again, like we're talking about, what exactly would I have hit it with to get that damage through? Yeah,
you don't have grenades.
Nope, not a single grenade in the entire army.
That's all right. Neither do I. I don't have them either.
Right. Sure. But yeah, it's all in all, it was interesting. It was kind of fun to play because there was a lot of stuff. You know, I was able to do. There was a lot of units. I was able to consistently keep the game moving, but it's still running into that same problem where it's just trying to punch up against things right now. Custodes are. This is not unlikely to look into a build like Custodes with this stuff. Granted, like you said, you might change the build and go over to the shield host and stuff like that. But does that make it any better for me? I don't have to deal with the dreadnoughts. Now I have to deal with the Venatari. And the Venatari are able to be anywhere on the field and jumping around, and they can take out, they could have supported your bikes over on that objective and picked up the Lich Guard and stuff like that. So it's like, does that really change in my favor that much?
Yeah, not a whole lot. No, because they're less durable than the dreadnoughts, but their mobility is there, and again, they have more volume of close combat attacks. They're strength 7, then they have lance, so they're consistently tearing through any kind of infantry.
Yeah, so it's just like, and then that's all I have. So it's just consistently being able to move through things. Like the Lich Guard might slow them down for a round of combat, and then not make it back around to the reanimations, like you said. So it's definitely, it was interesting to see that with the MSU. I think that this style with MSU does better with like Grey Knights, where I'm able to have that 2-up save going into cover, as well as if you go into the base detachment, I can get out of there. You move too close, I run away. So they don't necessarily, it doesn't seem like it really fully works for Necrons. There's definitely some things that were positive to see there. The Praetorians did very well in what they were doing. And the Scorpex. I wouldn't mind trying that Xeris trick again with like a couple squads of warriors, but it's 90 points. It's 182, 360 for the warriors, and then Xeris. So we're looking at 500 points alone right there. So a quarter of the army in that, and it's a slow moving brick. That's like, okay, I get this on an objective, but it just kind of gets scattered to the wind. It's not really something that can get up on an objective, which has kind of been the point that I've been kind of stuck at with Necrons right now. Is it's like things like the Wraiths are very resilient, and the Wraiths would have given any unit in this army that you just played trouble. But that's what the Wraiths do. They give units trouble because of how durable they are. But what else? What else is it backing with? So, yeah, kind of a little stuck right now with that. Almost feeling like it's just go back to Canoptic Court because of just I have the damage output out of there and everything like that, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to get those secondary games, which has been kind of a rough point with Necrons entirely. I thought the Hypercrypt was going to be able to do those secondary games, maybe a different build. Someone out there will probably say, well, yeah, you got to run it this way and that stuff. Probably maybe a different build can still do it, but it really feels like Necrons are in a really tough place right now, where a lot of armies, Custodes have gotten a power boost, Marines have gotten a power boost in multiple ways, multiple different flavors. Necrons have kind of just seen nerfs, so we haven't really seen anything that's kind of bringing us back up to that power level or the defensive level to be able to handle some of these things that are going on right now. I don't know. How do you see it? I know that you just love the fact of Necrons getting destroyed, but
I think Necrons have a pretty deep codex, and there are a bunch of decent detachments. So it may be just a matter of poking around in there. I don't think they're in a bad spot. For a while, they were one of the top 3 armies. I don't think they are anymore, but they're still a strong army. I struggled playing into them last week, so there's definitely play there. It's just a question of what detachment you're going to use and what how you're going to play into it. Yeah, we know that your Canoptic Court build is still pretty strong. It has a lot of that damage output that we kind of need right now. That's why my Death Watch didn't do as well last week, because I didn't put as many high damage units in there. You just got to kill your opponent before they get the chance to kill you, and that's something that Canoptic Court does a little bit better, because you have so many different damage profiles and so many different consistent ways to get
the consistency, especially with the rerolls. I don't know. It just does it. It still feels like with certain aspects of things that different armies can do, like we talk about the up downs. I can do it with Hypercrypt, but what is going to really do the damage afterwards? You know, it's not. There's nothing that hits like some of these. It's like what Marines can do with the up downs. But even Deathwatch, Deathwatch can pick up some very very brutal units that can just hit and completely wipe units out off the table like nothing. And Necrons don't really have that. They don't really have that damage output, which is fine because there's a lot of because of reanimation protocols, because of the ability to just put models back. You know, I shoot a 10-man Marine squad, I kill 3 guys. Those 3 guys are gone. You shoot a 10-man Necron squad, you take out 3 guys, they might come back. Same deal with the Wraiths. You know, so those units are able to come back, but it's a matter of right now it feels like there's enough damage in the game to get all the way through that and stop that from occurring, except for the Wraiths. Like every other unit is of risk of just getting swept off the field. Lich Guard, they really can't survive it. 2 wounds, you see there's 2 damage all over the place. They just get swept. Mm-hmm. And then Necron Warriors, a 20-man brick, blast weapons will just absolutely eat them apart, eat them to death totally. So I just, it doesn't, I think that Necrons shouldn't have necessarily damage output, but definitely right now, being the fact that Necrons are more of a resilience army based on reanimation, it feels like their resilience is not able to stand up to all the power the power creep in the game right now. And maybe that's the way it is, you know? Like you said, they were one of the early books. We look at potentially different, some change-ups this summer, and maybe there will be some changes that occur. Maybe that's the case. For me, I am going to still keep poking around with the Codex and seeing what I can figure out with it. I think that our fans want to see agents again, though. So I think it's time for me to throw the agents back down on the channel.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I got to prep my Death Watcher. I got a GT I'm going to March 1st and 2nd. So I got to
that's right.
Got to get some practice in with the boys in black.
So then I definitely need to run some more realistic things. So that might mean...
Yeah, don't give me the agents.
Maybe it'll be Grey Knights.
Sure.
Grey Knights will be tough. And then also the Dread Mob. You know, I haven't put the Dread Mob back on the table since some of the point drops happened. And that changes one of the things I liked the Dread Mob and I liked what I was running before. But one of the issues I was running into with the Dread Mob was I felt just short of having enough to score secondaries and hold objectives because of how the points shifted. Now, with the points dropping, I can go back to... I don't like what they did with the Tank Bustos. I don't like that at all. But it does shift back where now I might be able to go... I can get the Grots back in that I had before to be able to do the secondaries. And probably get the Mega Knobs back to a good size. You know, they're not unkillable as they were when the Codex hit. But they're still really tough, and you know, and that I mean, they still get that feel no pain. They're still really tough, and they can still shred through some stuff and gain all the bonuses that the detachment holds. So maybe take a break, jump away from Necrons for a minute. I think that I may need to just put the Canoptic Corp back on the table, get a feel, see how that feels again, and go from there. I might be going a little too wild with it, trying so many wild detachments, and not taking the time to really practice one and get it fully tuned in, especially like a list like this. There's so many working elements into it that maybe if I ran this a second time, I'd have better results, you know? It might be one of those things where I'm jumping lists too much, which is something that I tell a lot of people, you know, you got to kind of sit with a list for a little bit and see how it feels. And I don't feel like I've sat on a Necron list long enough to really get a good feel for it. I jumped off the last one because a lot of people felt like, and I agreed, the Immortals may not have been where it was at. So, you know, might be something like that. I haven't found a list that I really, really want to spend that time with too. Like, I'm not sure, like, I'm having fun with them. Obviously, I still love playing this game, but it hasn't found a list I'm like, yeah, I like this. I just need to practice it more.
I feel the same way about my Death Watch. There's lots of strong data sheets and lots of strong things in the army, but I just haven't got a list boiled down to where I feel like it does all the things I needed to do. Board control for primary, killing power, and secondary scoring. I just don't feel like I have the right mix of those yet. So it's going to take some more cooking.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think where I'm at right now too. Is just like after with Necrons, it's like like you said, I know Canoptic Court's a good failsafe, and trying to mess with other things and see other things on the table, but it's just a lot of these things that worked at one point don't really work right now. They're not as efficient as they were before because of nerfs and with some other power creeps and stuff like that. I mean, granted, you go back to the bikes just got a boost in general. It's not the new detachment. It's just the bikes got a boost in general.
Yeah, they were terrible. They're a lot better now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the thing is that it's like with Necrons, everything's kind of just gone nerf, 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 nerf. We've seen a couple like, oh, look, Wraiths dropped in points, but then it's like everything else got nerfed. Everything else gets dropped down and hurt. And the only thing that's gotten a buff is the Annihilation Legion, but the Annihilation Legion still suffers from the fact, and we'll see, I guarantee we'll see it even more now, that there's not really any feel no pain or any defense to it or invuln, that everything just kind of gets hit and swept.
It's not called the Defense Legion. It's called the Annihilation Legion. Your defense is you got to kill your opponent first.
So it gets annihilated. The Annihilation Legion just gets annihilated. But I'm not sure. I don't know. But we'll see. Yeah, you said you want to see. I'll probably put either the Dread Mob or Grey Knights. It's going to be either Dread Mob or Grey Knights. Let us know, which one do you want to see? You want to see some Grey Knight action going into some Death Watch, or the Dread Mob to give Lane a taste of some vehicles and higher toughness things? Because I mean, I'm going to run 18 kilocans because that's what I do. Mm-hmm. And the Gork and Morkanaut, which they're a lot of fun to just go, you know what? I'm at 20 wounds here. Hazardous everything and just try to burn something off the table. But yeah, let us know. It's going to be Death Watch for Lane. It's either going to be going into the Grey Knights or going into the Dread Mob. I still have Mechanicus I'd like to throw on the table, but not when you're prepping for a GT, because I'm not 100% sure on what I want to do with them yet. There's some stuff with the Grotmist detachment I actually am interested to try with my Castle and Robots, because I love them. But that'll be for something that when maybe you're like, hey, I want to try this with this new detachment and stuff like that, then I could see us doing that. But for right now, it's either going to be Necrons, Grey Knights, or the Dread Mob. And then maybe the following week I'll come back with Necrons and see what I can put on the table. Maybe it might be the Canoptic Court just to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
throw something.
That's kind of your baby.
It is. And I mean, I do feel comfortable. The only reason I kind of went away from it a little bit is I don't like the secondary game for it. It feels really slow. Like it's really hard for me to get the secondary game moving with that detachment. Just because like few units and stuff like that. So I might need to go back through and tweak it a little bit and see if I can't get a little bit more over in that secondary game. But I feel like that'll be after either either Grey Knights or Orcs. So any closing thoughts, Mr. Lane?
No, I think that's it.
All right, guys. Well, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.